We all know that I love Space Marines, but when it comes to Space Marines battling the enemies of mankind, my favourite foe has to be Orks. Stories like Hell's Reach and The Beast Arises have always been some of my favourite reads. Orks to me are the most brutal race in the galaxy. Their ferocity, cunning and technology can overwhelm anyone. One of the battles that stands out for me is Rynn's World, where the Crimson Fist battled a huge Ork WAAAGH that nearly wiped out their entire chapter. This WAAAGH was commanded by Snagrod, who himself was known as one of the most powerful Orks in the galaxy. Snagrod had made himself an empire around the Caradon system that was located in the Segmentum Solar. You could easily say that this empire rivaled that of Rebute's and the 500 worlds. Now, Rynn's World was not just your typical Imperial agri-world, but it was home to the Crimson Fist Space Marine chapter. The Crimson Fist are a second founding chapter belonging to the gene lineage of Rogue WAAAGH. Their founder, Alexis Pollux, was a renowned warrior who fought alongside Primarchs such as Rogue WAAAGH, the Lion and Rebute during the days of the Crusade and Heresy. When Snagrod united his Orks and launched his WAAAGH, it was not directly at the planet of Rynn's World, but to the planet called Bad Landing, a neighbouring planet around 3 weeks of warp travel away from Rynn's World. The Imperial defenders on Bad Landing were not prepared for this massive Ork WAAAGH. The Ork forces that had gathered were the biggest that has been seen in the area since the days of the Great Crusade. The Imperial defenders did all they could against the Ork invasion of Bad Landing, but their defences soon fell, and the Orks began a feast of slaughter. Snagrod, seeing the planet was more or less his, issued broadcasts of victory throughout the sector, boasting that the Imperium would fall and Rynn's World would be next on the chopping block. The chapter master of the Crimson Fist, Pedro Kantor, responded by sending a retribution force upon the Ork threat. He dispatched the Crimson Fist 3rd Company, commanded by Captain Asho Draken. Hopefully they could keep the Orks at bay while the Imperial forces regrouped. The 3rd Company engaged Snagrod's forces at Bad Landing at a place called Krugerport. The Crimson Fist dug in, but it soon turned to folly. The Orks were just too numerous to hold back. The Battle of Krugerport turned into a massacre, and the Crimson Fist suffered heavy losses. Out of a detachment of 84 Marines, 56 were slain, including their commander, Captain Asho Draken. Those that managed to survive and make their way back to the home planet of Rynn's World brought with them vital information on the size of the Ork WAAAGH. Upon hearing the numbers that the Orks had mustered, Chapter Master Pedro Kantor issued a recall for all chapter companies to return to Rynn's World and started to issue orders to the Imperial forces in the sector to regroup and make ready for the incoming threat. When Snagrod and his forces hit Rynn's World, it was like hell unleashed. The battle was not only on the world but in the skies above it. The Imperial Navy unleashed volley after volley of their guns upon the Ork fleet, bringing ruin and carnage, but the Orks, as always, had numbers on their side. The fleet soon began to be overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity and the volume of the Ork attack. The one thing the Orks did not take into account was the orbital defence system of Rynn's World that was controlled from the Crimson Fist Fortress Monastery, which was one of the most defended places on the planet. When the Orks launched their invasion of the planet, the Crimson Fist themselves were amazed by how fast the Ork attack had come and the brutal efficiency of their strikes. With the defence platform active, the Crimson Fist could bring ruin upon the Orks and give them the time needed to hold off the main bulk of the Ork attack until reinforcements arrived to help. But then, disaster struck. A missile launched from the planet's defence system malfunctioned. The missile fell back towards the planet, landing upon the Crimson Fist Fortress Monastery. The sky was lit with fire as the Crimson Fist chapter burned. Their fortress monastery, which controlled the planet's defence system, was destroyed and left in utter ruin. Only 16 Space Marines survived the ruin of the fortress monastery. Among the surviving Space Marines was their chapter master Pedro Kantor, and with him, out of the ashes walked another, Captain Alessio Cortez. With the orbital defences now powered down through the ruin of the Crimson Fist Fortress Monastery, the skies became overwhelmed by Ork landing craft. The WAAAGH was free to land its biggest and most brutal weapons with no opposition at all. The Crimson Fist chapter was shattered and broken. They could no longer fight the war they intended with the Orks. Their numbers were just too low. Chapter Master Pedro Kantor decided to put every resource into a single area of defence that could hopefully hold the Ork forces at bay until reinforcements arrived. The destination was a spaceport located near New Rynn City, the capital of the planet. The remaining of the planet's guns stationed around the spaceport and the capital city aimed skyward to kill as many Ork vessels as possible and keep the invaders from overrunning their last defended location. Chapter Master Pedro Kantor and the last surviving Crimson Fists changed their battle tactics to purge the Ork beasts. Hitting the Orks head on would be useless. They were outnumbered and outgunned. Instead, the Chapter Master led a guerrilla campaign of strike and fade attacks against the main Ork forces, hitting them in the most vulnerable positions and fading back into the shadows when the Orks sent their counterattack. For 18 solar months, the defenders of Rinnsworld held their ground, making the Orks pay for every inch they took. Soon, the skies were filled with fire once more as the Imperial Navy Liberation Fleet arrived in the system and began to wage war on the Ork fleet above the planet. With the Imperial Navy came countless reinforcements of Imperial Guard and also other Space Marine chapters, sending aid to their cousins of the Crimson Fists. The Ork fleet was driven from the system, but the war for Rinnsworld was far from over. Thank you for watching this video. I am thinking of doing a part 2 for this conflict that will focus on the Battle of Traitor's Gorge and the eventual fall of Snagrog and his forces. Is that something that you'd like to see? Then please let me know in the comment section. Also, if you have any other Space Marine battles you would like to see me cover, then please post them below as well. Thank you and have a great day.